If you would like to follow along as we go through some exercises and show you how to do things, you're welcome to go ahead and open Excel on your computer. If you do not already own Excel, you can go to ugamail.uga.edu and download a free version of it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Rachel Evans, web coordinator here at the law school, and this is Jason Tubinis. He's the IT librarian at the law school. And today we're going to talk to you a little bit about the legal tech audit. Last semester, if you caught that session, we gave you sort of an introduction and we did some mini lessons. So just in case you missed that session last semester, we're going to do a really quick overview of what the audit is and why we're trying to give you guys these skills. And then we'll get into just focusing on Excel for today.
So the tech audit was devised by this counsel for Kia Motors, and was thinking that I bring in a lot of outside counsel to do a lot of work for me, and I look at the billable hours and I see, wow, that is a lot of time. And I see that a lot of this time is spent on doing really good work as a lawyer. But a lot of this time, I'm suspecting, is spent doing a lot of redundant work. What kind of work? Formatting in Word, doing stuff in Excel. My favorite example is you can't send PDFs to a court with live links into it. So what do some of these attorneys do? They print out the PDFs and then take the printouts and rescan them as a PDF. Like, well, that's great, but that's 4 minutes when you're billing at $200 an hour. That's $20 right there, and that's one set of documents, and you know how much can get involved in big outside corporate work. So we came up with this small set of exercises. He just brought in a representative associate, said, okay, here's a dozen things, let's say, that you need to do, and I'm going to watch you do it. So they sat down, and Kate, this counsel, said, I can do all of these in half an hour. Let's see how long it takes you to do it. Best case scenario, an hour. Best anybody who took this audit did 2.5 hours. Most, I think it was 8 hours. It was absurd. Averaging 5 hours when it should only take 30 minutes. So we came up with this idea that I'm going to make this audit a tool that we're going to put out there to the world. It's going to be standardized. Firms can have their associates take it, individual attorneys can take it, clients can ask that their lawyers take it. And so, of course, the most important thing for an attorney is to be a good lawyer. But if you're, on all things being equal, sometimes being tech savvy is going to be a determining factor. So there's also a tool for students to take this tech audit, just to kind of say, hey, I know how to do all these things. I'm going to save you lots of money so I can work on more projects and be a better asset to you. Some of these, like I said, it's doing basic stuff in Word. Instead of brute forcing it, you can do a lot of automatic functions. Rachel's going to talk to you a lot about what you can do in Excel. There's a whole ton of tools in PDF that I had never heard of before, and I can understand why they'd be really important. This is just going back and saying lawyers need to get a little bit better about this. And to prove that it's not just us saying this, the ABA actually added a comment to Rule 1.1 on your duty of competence or duty of diligence, saying one of the things you need to be able to do is be aware of all the risks and benefits of technology, as well as all the new things technology can do. So that's partly adopting new technology, know all the good things about it and all the bad things about it. There was a big push to get everybody on the cloud for a little while, and then, personal information started flying out to anybody who cared. So it's good to adopt, but it's also good to understand the problems. The second part of that is you can use Word, and it's great that you're using a word processor, WordPerfect, but if you're not improving your skills, you're not doing your job as a good lawyer.
So that brings us to Excel. This is the first focus of this session. The rest of the semester, starting with next week, we'll focus on PDFs, and a couple weeks after that, we will do a focus on Word. And then we're going to repeat the series. So if you want to come back and get a refresher, or just tell your friends this is something that you learned something valuable from, This is going on all semester. But this first one, we're going to talk about Excel, and I feel like maybe this is the one that that the legal profession is maybe the most afraid of. There's a lot of numbers involved. You could think, oh, how would I use that? But there are actually a lot of ways that legal professionals are using Excel today, and you could get creative and use them in even more ways. So the first big common way that legal professionals are using Excel is to track their billable time. You might have tons of projects going on. You may be meeting with different clients. Depending on your specific line of work, you're still going to have a lot of billable time to keep up with. So this can be tricky for people. Some people would prefer to, keep it in a handwritten sheet. Some people, it's just like they're keeping up with it. They're writing it down every so often. But you could either miss hours, or you may end up rounding up and not actually doing them accurately. So a great way to use Excel is to use a template to track your billable time. And that's one of the exercises we're going to cover today. Another way, and this is one way that billable time can be used, is for internal reference. A lot of firms will use Excel to compile the billable time of all of their attorneys into sort of a year-end financial analysis. So this works really well for firms to be able to sort and judge how much their attorneys are spending time on different types of cases, just to be able to determine the workflow, and also to see how much money is coming in from different types of things. So there are a lot of applications. People can also use this to create timelines for themselves, so you can better keep track of the facts of a case that you're working on, or you can better keep track of how many times you've met with a particular person or discussed a certain matter. And that's going to help you for sorting them in the future, as well as just referencing them if you go to trial with something, or you just need to present it to a group of people. So even if you're thinking, well, how could I use this in trial? Well, in addition to doing case timelines and other methods, lots of litigators actually end up using Excel during trial. They'll have, and on your references, there's a resources list on the handout that I gave you, so you can flip to the back. And one of those resources is litigators and Excel. So that is a perfect example. It actually gives a reenactment in video form of a litigator using Excel to cross-examine a witness. So doing this in live time in trial. And if this person had not known the basics of Excel, they wouldn't have been able to competently work their way through this in the spur of the moment. And you'll see the example is really simple. It would take very basic knowledge of using Excel. Even if you just open it a couple of times before, you would be able to do the thing that this person does in that example. So it could have a lot of practical use. So really, what do you need to know? This is the LTA, the Legal Tech Audit Features List. And this is also listed on your resources list on the handout, so you can go back to this. And this is something that you could reference for all the sessions we're doing. So they give a PDF list. It's not complete, but it contains most of the things that they expect you to know how to do for the legal tech audit. And it looks really scary. There are a lot of things listed for PDF, Word, and Excel. But Excel is by far the one that has the most items listed. But you can easily break it down when we're looking at this. There's a lot that is one and the same. So you see how many different lines they expect you to know, how to format columns. We've got all of these functions. So you can see how many different items there are, but some of them are really simple, like copy and paste. That may be something that's intuitive to you that you just already know how to do. So of course, we don't have time to cover every single thing that's listed here today, but what we are going to do is focus on a few that are probably the most important if you just want to be able to use this competently, and if you just wanted to be able to pass the simple audit. So the things that we're going to talk about today the most, a few formulas that we're going to show you are average, roundup, and sum. We're going to show you some auto features like autofill and autosum, so that would be another way to just increase your productivity and make things a little bit faster for yourself. How to use cell and sheet reference and include that in a formula, so that way you're not duplicating effort. You're going to pull from something where you already have data. how to sort, and then how to format so that you can make your documents look nice and presentable, and also so that it's easier for you to read them. And the formatting really comes in handy if you do end up using this in the case of actually working with a client, you're presenting this in trial, and you want it to look really nice. So we'll talk about formatting text and dates too. So the first thing we're going to do is jump into some super basics. And with this, I'm going to open up just a sample personal budget. So for you who are completely new to Excel, these are the very basics that we're going to touch on. And if you're a little familiar with it, you can just kind of play along. And I encourage you to do this as we go. There are templates listed also on the back of the handout. So if you would like to, at any point, jump in on your own version of Excel and open the very template that I'm using, you'd be able to do that and sort of follow along. You could also just open a blank spreadsheet and go for it that way. So initially,
where are the templates located?
Templates are back of your handout. There's a list at the very top that says exercise and assessment templates.
There you go.
So the first 3 are going to be the examples that we do in class today. And the very first one, the sample budget template, is the basis of what I'm showing you right now. So to start with, I just want to show you what a finished template could look like. And you can see how this could be helpful for you personally, no matter who you are, legal professional or not. You can sort of get a picture of how Excel can help you to organize very simple information. You could go in here and put in your own, estimated monthly expenses or your own estimated monthly income, and sort of do a projection for yourself. Give yourself a projected budget, especially if you have a goal for something. You can also see how Excel could be good at giving like a graphical representation. So you could imagine yourself applying this to legal information and displaying this really nicely. Let's say that, and in a minute we'll get into a firm analysis with financial information for a sample firm, and you can see how you could display this really nicely for your colleagues to see how your growth was over the year. So here I've got projections. And then I also have a separate one for actuals. And a lot of people think, well, I don't really like using Excel because I prefer to write things down by hand. And a lot of people are that way. And if you're somebody who likes to write things down by hand, I do that too. So I like to use Excel to format something nice for myself. And even though there are some figures in there, I could leave some blank and have a nice printable version for myself to fill out later at home, so that it still helps me keep organized, but I'm also being more efficient with that organization. So if you've opened up your template that I gave you, or if you're just working from scratch, the first thing we're going to do is talk about some basic terminology. So obviously, this is a cell. We've got columns. Oops. We've got columns across the top. So A through L, you can see. We have rows from top to bottom. And what I've done here is I've given it a title sort of at the top. And I've given my first section the title income. We've got a couple of subcategories. And then we're going to jump down to expenses and do the same thing and have a total for both. So we could toss in some numbers here. I'm just going to make this up as I go along, and if you're doing this with me, please feel free to fill in whatever you want. You can save this as you go and then return to it later, and this is a great way to play around and just figure out how to use the basics of Excel for yourself, because one of the best ways you can learn is to just jump in and dive in with some fake data and have fun with it.
As fun as Excel.
As fun as it can be. So the first thing we're going to do here to calculate our total is I'm going to show you where to find formulas. If you don't know anything and you're looking for a formula and you've never used Excel before, the best place to start is this Formulas tab at the top. You'll see a list of menus. So we'll click on Formulas and we're going to insert function. And from here, you could search for commonly used functions. So if you know what you're looking for but you don't know how to do it yet, this is the place to go to find it. We're going to click on Sum and choose OK. And it's automatically going to, Excel is smart, it's like a lot of programs, so it knows that because we're at the bottom of a series of numbers, it's going to add those up for you. Now, if it had chosen the wrong ones, here's where you could go in and select the cells. So here we can see it's taking from B4 to B6, which is what we want. But if it was wrong, we could simply edit that and make it correct. But in this case, it is correct, so we're going to click OK. And it's going to total that for us. So again, you may think, well, that's simple math. I probably could have done that quicker on my own. This is a simple one, but when you imagine this in the context of a lot more information, lots of billable time and hours that are coming from different attorneys, and you're compiling it in one spreadsheet, you would definitely be able to save time by doing this. So let's do this again. And if you're following along with me, feel free to just enter some different numbers.
Excel knows that you're entering dollar signs, so it actually adds the, okay.
Well, and this is one thing, as I had already started, and I set this template up for you also. If you are going through my template, it should put in the dollar signs for you. But if you start a habit, it's going to follow your habit. And if it doesn't, that would be one thing where in a minute when we get into formatting, you could go in and make sure that it's taking your dollar sign. Make up some stuff. All right, we'll leave this other stuff blank. So now, again, I want to do a sum here. So I want to show you a slightly quicker way to calculate the sum, so you don't have to always go in and find that. Sum is one of those that Excel does very well and expects people to do. So there's a button up here called Auto Sum. You can just click that, and again, it's going to do it for you even quicker. And you can hit enter, and that's going to give you the total for that column. So now if I were to go back in and say, oh, well, actually, I did need to add something there. So we add $10 for a prescription, it's going to go ahead and update that for us. So now anytime we make a change to these columns, it's going to update it for us because that formula is already in there. So if you're working on a file, you can go ahead and click Save. And now let's jump down to the bottom. So down here, I have a few extras. If you want to keep things simple, you could just do a remaining balance. And what I'm going to show you how to do is create a custom formula to subtract your expenses from your income. So what we want to do right here then, for me, this is going to be my initial balance. My expected income, what I want to do is I want to reference cell B7. So to do that, you can click on a cell, which is expected income, and you can choose this formula bar. And earlier, when you saw that we were adding formulas, either with AutoSum or with finding the formula, it was putting that in for us. So here, what I want to do is do it myself. I'm going to say that this equals cell B7. And it's going to give me that number. So that way, anytime I change the stuff up top, the bottom is also going to change for me. A slightly quicker way to do this, expected expenses. This time, I'm going to choose equal, and I'm actually going to click on the cell. And it's actually going to populate that. So again, it depends on how you like to work and how quickly you like to get things done. But that's just another way to do it. So my initial balance, assuming I don't add anything extra, what we want to do is we want to subtract our expected expenses from our expected income. So here, again, we're going to go to our formula bar. If you click there, it will sometimes just go ahead and pop up that bar for you. Or you can do it by hand, which is what we're about to do. So to do this, you're going to choose your cells. What we want to do is B27, which is where we have our expected income. And we want to subtract B29. And we can hit enter and we'll get our new total for that. So you can see how it's pretty simple to fit the pieces together. And this is what's going on in that original sheet that I showed you. So all of this, you can see once you had stuff filled in, you would be able to click around on a template like this, and there are lots of templates available. The resources list on the back of the handout also lists several template links that you can go and download for free and try out. And I can't stress enough, again, the best way to get in and check things out is to jump around and click on a template cells and see what's going on and see if you can figure it out. And you can always copy their formula and use it in your own context. So here, in my initial balance, you can see since I have other items in there that are calculated, this is actually subtracting B29 and B30 from B26 through 28. So I'm getting a little more complicated, but again, they're just simple math functions, and it's something that could save you a lot of time in the future.
Was Excel never adds incorrectly?
Yes. As long as you put it in correctly, Excel will get it for you correctly. This program, it can look overwhelming at first, but once you start poking around, it's a lot easier to use than you think it is. And when you learn where to find, especially insert function and just this formula toolbar at the top, those are going to be your best friends as far as figuring stuff out, because it doesn't matter if you know a function yet. As long as you know where to go to find out, how to find out what it is, you can figure it out. The other thing that I want to talk about in this particular one is just cover some more basics before we get into the legal specific stuff. This is very simple and it may come intuitively to some of you, but know that you can always adjust the width and height of your rows and columns. You can always select multiple cells by holding your mouse over the top or bottom of a column and just clicking. You can click and drag to select more. So this is a great way to accomplish some basic formatting. So let's say I want this entire row to have a background and a different font color. And then I also wanted this entire row to be my title row, so I can make the font really big. Some other things that you can do if you want this section to stand out more is, again, use that formatting. We can make it a light blue, and we could make this and this, we can make this maybe a light orange, just so that it's easier for yourself to read. I'm just randomly picking these. But I encourage you to get in and play around and come up with methods that look good to you. If it looks better to you, it's going to look better to a client or to your colleagues if you end up showing them this stuff. And a lot of times, if you're the one who's a little more tech savvy, they may end up using your templates. And several of the resources that are on the list where you're getting those templates from are actually blog posts by attorneys who are talking about how their colleagues were jealous of their template, and that's why it's up there. So, you know, these things can be really helpful, and they can definitely be effective in practice. And again, I encourage you with your personal budget, this is a great one just to jump in and play around with, because there's nothing you can screw up, you know. If there's other creative ideas you can come up with to use it, definitely do that. So the next one I want to jump into, oops, let's go back to our presentation real quick. Okay. Exercise number 2. So now we're going to put this, what you just learned, into a legal context. How could you use this for billable time and maybe for a firm analysis? So we're picturing you keeping track of your own records. We're also picturing someone in your firm, if you're in a small or a large firm, having to compile this for the end of the year. So even if you're not the person to compile it, it's good to understand that this is going to make your job easier to begin with, and it inevitably, even if it's not your job to compile it, it's going to make somebody's job easier. So in this case, we're after efficiency. So some of the things that I'm going to cover, and if you want to follow along with this as well, again, those links for your exercise templates. This is going to be number 2. And there are two templates I'm going to use. We're going to look at billable time and firm analysis. And so in the first one, what we're going to talk about, and again, I want to stress this is probably the most common way that people use it. So this would be a very easy way to improve your use of time in practice and keeping up with your time. So what we're going to talk about is adding some information. We're going to copy and paste a little bit. We're going to do some basic formatting like we did before. I'm also going to show you how to format dates, because that's something that attorneys may use a lot in Excel. You're going to be putting in different dates and times. And so Excel wants to make dates look a certain way by default. But I'm going to show you how to make it look the way that you want it to look. Then I'm also going to show you how to use the formula roundup. It's a slightly more complicated formula that you may not think of, but in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to take a start and finish time for different days, and we're going to round it up so that Excel is calculating how many hours you worked for yourself. And that way you don't have to do the math. And then we're also going to apply some more sums just to calculate some totals. I'm going to show you how to print this so that if you like your billable time sheet but you do need it on hand, we'll be able to show you how to make a nice printout of that. And then we're going to get into firm analysis and look at how hours would apply in the context of a larger firm, and how multiple spreadsheets would be able to be useful so that you can reference the totals from one and do some more complicated calculations in subsequent spreadsheets. So let's jump back into Excel. And again, encourage you to go ahead and open the billing template that I gave you. So this is my finished formatted version, and this is what we're going to aim for. So if you have that template open, or if you are on a blank spreadsheet, this is the goal for this exercise. We want to be able to have billable time. We want it to look nice. This is a print layout view, so we want to be able to print it and have it look nice. We want these dates to be formatted, and what we want, I'm going to adjust this here. What we want is for our time spent to be calculated by Excel instead of us doing that by hand. And then you could imagine this being full, but however much is on it, we want Excel to give us the total so that we don't have to do that math with all these hours and minutes either. So here's what your raw version should look like. The first thing that I want you to do if you're in a template is to start working on adjusting your columns width and height and your rows, just so that you have adequate space for all of the information that's there. And if you're in a blank spreadsheet, you can copy these: date, client, matter, work performed. It doesn't have to be that complicated. If you want, you could just put in the date, which is one thing we're going to work on formatting, and you could put in these three for time, because that's what we're going to be covering most of all. So again, what I'd really like to do is have everything centered. I think that looks pleasing to my eye. So if you're looking to format, and you're familiar with Word or any other program, you'll notice that we have some alignment settings that we can choose. So we want to choose to center our text, and everything is centered. And again, to select everything, you're just going to click and drag. Now, I would like the top to be bolded. So again, I'm going to highlight that and choose bold. Maybe I want this a little larger. And I would like to have it underlined, but that's only going to underline it just for that. So that's not actually what I want. So what I'd like to show you how to do is to add borders to your cells. And this is a great thing, especially if you're planning to print it, so that when you print it out, it doesn't just have a bunch of blank space and you say, where did the cells go? This could be really helpful just for ease of reading, whether it's printed or not. So what I want to do for this one, you can select this little icon here that gives you all your border options. You can see how many border options you have. So for now, the one that I really want to choose is bottom border. So that's going to give me a line across beneath all of those headings. So just a little bit more complicated formatting. What we want to do is format the date column. So I'm going to highlight my date column. Well, we just have two. Or we can just highlight this, however you prefer. and we're going to choose to right-click and format cells. And this is going to give you a menu. Often, if it recognizes the type of information you already have, in this case it recognizes this is a date, it's going to go ahead and pull up the type of formatting it expects you to do. So we're on number and we're on date, and if you're not already there, you can navigate to this. And we have all these options that it gives us for formatting. So feel free to pick whichever one you like best. What I am going to choose is the month, day, and year format. And you can see that it's going to format that for me. Excel can get really, if you're getting in there and you're trying to put in something that it recognizes as a date in a format that you like, but you're not doing it this way, it could get really frustrating because you're going to keep typing and it's going to keep giving you something that doesn't look correct. Sometimes it can change your figures. So knowing simply for any type of data to right-click and go to Format Cells can be very helpful. And this is a place where you'll be able to find out how to format lots of things, percentages, fractions, depending on what you're looking for. So the next thing that I want to do is I want Excel to calculate time spent for me. Here, what I'm going to do is use the formula roundup. So if you remember, we were in our formulas bar. And this time, I'm going to assume that I don't know what this formula is, but I know what it's called. I know that I want to round numbers. So I'm going to go to Insert Function, and I'm going to search for round. And here, you can see that round up came up. There's also a round down. There are several related functions that it's going to give you. So the one we want to use today is round up. I'm going to click OK. Now for numbers. And this is something that may take you Googling the answer. This is one that I know how to do, and it's going to be helpful to you, so definitely take note of it. But if there's ever something that you're curious about, I encourage you to search Excel's help or to search Google for the answer, and you will figure out really quickly how to do something simple. So what we want to do, we're doing time. So I know that there are 24 hours in a day, and the star and the 24 is going to tell Excel that I'm talking about time. And the number of digits I want is 1. It's telling me this is invalid, but... and just so that you can all see the function that I'm about to use, so you can write it down before I go any farther. This is round up. And it's on your handout as well. Under Excel tips to remember on the front, if you will look at round up, I've written this out for you. So that's what we're doing. We're going to reference 2 cells. We're going to reference the 2 cells that we want to round between. And then we're also going to put in to let Excel know that this is time. And the 1 or -1, whatever you ended up putting there, would indicate where to round to. Oops. So what I'm going to do here is make sure that it matches. Just make sure that it matches what I've put in there.
What are those values?
G2 minus F2.
Okay.
So we're referencing row 2's cells at the end. So we're referencing our time start and our time stop. So we want to subtract time stop from time start to find out the time spent in between. And then what Excel is going to do with round up is round that time up. So we'll click OK. And now you can see the function up there. Now, instead of finding it again, you could have just clicked at the top and entered that. Another way to do this would be to type it in ourselves. And as you start to type, did you notice that it will often give you a list of functions? So just another way to make it quicker for yourself, if that's what you want to do.
And it actually has a prompt for you, which you want to put in.
And then, as I showed you before, we could actually just click on the cells that we want. Just another way to do it if you want to make it a little faster for yourself. So now we have formulas in here to calculate the time spent. If you were going to fill this entire sheet out, you could go through and copy this formula and paste it in.
I have a question about what the 1 means. You said that it's what you're rounding up to is that whole number. What does that mean exactly?
Yes. Let's click in here and I will show you. So Excel is very good at giving you information about what each is for. So if you have a question like that, you can always click and it's going to show you your function argument. It's going to give you a little bit of information about it. And if you're not satisfied with that explanation, you can always click on more help with this function. And it will give you even more detailed information. So that's a way that you can find out more about every single function that we're going to cover, or about any function that you stumble across.
So I guess that 1 is how many post digits. So if you really
Yes.
wanted to get to like the thousandths of the second, you would get down to that.
Yeah. Yes.
At the same time, when applying the formula to the below cells, can you just drag that little box on the bottom right of the selection box in Excel?
Yes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Definitely. So that is going to be another shortcut for just applying that to the rest. So as you said, what we could do is we could drag it and we could continue dragging all the way down if we want to. I'm going to drag to about 25. And then you can click on those cells and see that it did apply it. And it's going to apply it and automatically choose those cells that you want. And you could do that for any of the cells that we're going to work with.
And I guess Excel is smart enough to know the difference between AM and PM. And so if you started something in the morning and finished it in the afternoon.
It does. Yes.
So smart.
Excel is smart like that.
One thing it's not smart about is if you start using the European dates, so it's day, month, year, it really kind of loses its mind. So there is a specific little quirk you have to put in for that one. I've bumped into that one myself.
So now what I want to do is I want to calculate my total here. I'm going to add something for total. Just so we can show you again, reiterate a little bit of the of our formatting here. It would be nice to have the total slide over. So again, just know and remember where all of your formatting tools are. They're usually on the Home tab, at least all the go-to ones. And then again, here we want to sum, so we want to do it the quickest way possible. We can click, I believe this will give me an auto sum, yeah. There is actually a quick sum on your Home tab because it is one of the most often used tools by people. So we can click, it's going to give us the sum, it's going to show us that it's taking E2 to E26, or E25, and we can select OK. Checkmark is important. When you go to put in anything or you're editing a formula, be sure to select that checkbox. A lot of times, probably my most common mistake and a lot of people's common mistake would be to forget to click the checkbox or forget to hit enter, and you start clicking around on other cells, and before you know it, your formula has added, you can see how easy it is to add those other cells just by clicking on them. So that will add up really, really quickly. So be careful with that. Always be sure that if you've just fixed a formula or a function, to click the checkbox or to hit enter before touching anything else. All right. The last thing that I want to show you with this page is how to set this up to look nice to print. So I really like this. I would really love to be able to print this out for myself. I'm envisioning that this is full and I've got a lot of information here. So the first thing I want to do is set my print area. If we go to page layout, this is a handy tab for you if you are planning to print anything in Excel. We can choose print area and set the print area. What it thinks is that I have set print area to just this cell. So to fix that, I want to highlight the area that I want to print. And I can choose print area and set print area, and it's going to show me that. Another thing that I can do, and this line here is going to indicate what my print area is. It looks like this is set up to be a portrait, and that's what Excel is by default, unless you've changed it, going to do. It's going to want to print 8 by 10 portrait up and down. So another thing that we could do to get all of this on the page is to choose orientation and change it to landscape. And now we can see that it has jumped over. So we can see that what it wants to print is through here, but what we want is through here. So sometimes this will take a little bit of scooting things around. Obviously, I could make these columns a little bit smaller, and here they've all fit onto my print area. But now I've got the problem of my font is a little too big to read, so we'll go back and we can make this a little smaller. And now everything fits very nicely. So it still looks like a spreadsheet. I want to be able to print this and see what it's going to look like printed. So another handy feature, aside from page layout where most of your information is to go to view. And view is going to give you a few other features to look at. So this is in normal view, and this is what it's going to look like when you normally open Excel. But if you choose print layout, now we can see that it shows us what the sheet of paper would look like, and it's going to show us our information there as well. So now we can choose to add a title, and I'm just going to call this my billable hours. And I'm going to go back and bold my title, and now I think that it's looking pretty good. It's ready to go. Oh, I forgot to make everything, I want all of the borders visible here. So what I'm going to do is make the section where I would enter data. I want to go back here and I want to choose all borders. And that's going to give me a border for everything. And that's just going to help me stay organized once I print this out. So if you're working on this and you want to save your progress, feel free to save it before we get into the next one. I encourage you to go in and play around, play with formatting the date like I showed you and using different date styles. You can play with using roundup for different types of data other than time. These are just great things for you to just explore and figure out how to use Excel to your own advantage a little more. So the next one that I want to show you now is the larger context of billable hours and how this could play into making other people in your firm's job easier. Perhaps if you're the person who ends up compiling this together, this would definitely make your job easier. So here we've got some sample information. We've got project names, project types. We've got start and finish days. We have actual work, and we can click and see that our duration down here is actually being added up by Excel. It is calculating between our start and finish date for each column. So as you'll notice in the functions bar, we're about to learn how to use a new one called Days 360, which is going to be used to calculate calendar days for you. And so you can see how when you get with this much information and you're talking about calendar days, this would save you a lot of time. Some people may, who aren't using Excel or don't have a better method to do it, would be forced to count their calendar days. And that, count on a physical calendar would take forever. So you want to, again, the goal is efficiency and time saving. So the last thing that I'm going to show you how to do in this particular example is how to create an average. So here you can see that even though I have a sum for my duration, I also have the average time spent on a project. And this could be helpful for your firm to judge what's our average time that we're spending on projects. And that would be a piece of information that could be very, very useful. Before I get into showing you how to do those couple of things, I just want to show you the grand scheme of financial analysis. So we're not going to get into all this today, but I did give you the template Again, if you want to follow along, this is the firm analysis template that you can find on the back of the handout. And you can click through, and again, there's nothing better than clicking through and figuring out what's going on in a spreadsheet so that you can better understand it. So if we click here, we can see actuals, B8. This is pulling from the first template. So if actuals B8, oops, where's my B? If actuals B8 is gone, we can come back over here and see that it wouldn't fill that in. And here again, I've done what I told you not to do, which is it's very easy to click on the formula bar and click around and add to your formula without meaning to. So if anyone is curious about how to undo, you can always use Control-Z to undo what you just did. And there I went even further than I should have. Okay, so here it's totaling for all of the projects. It's showing what type. It's showing your total billings in dollar amounts. Project parameters is going to give us, again, we're pulling from our project types in subsequent sheets to show us the percentages that each type of partner is using. And then our monthly billings is going to give us a yearly cumulative total at the end to show you how all of this adds up into the grand scheme of things. Now, if you've ever, and you saw just now, this is just a handy way for you to view. If you have a huge spreadsheet and you need to know how to increase or decrease your size, Excel has a little view zoom at the bottom that you can slide back and forth so that you could see something more close up or further away. And that could just help you to work a little better. Whoops, don't want to close. So, this is my working example. This is what your template should look like. If you need to adjust the column heights, feel free to do that. My project types are already in here, but what I want to do is show you how to copy and paste and match the formatting. So in a regular spreadsheet, you can always copy and paste from any program. If it's in list form, it's going to put it into the cells for you. Excel is smart that way. But if you have a template like this that is already formatted, and that's what you're starting from, you want to keep the formatting. So I'm going to show you the difference between, no, that's not the wrong one. Here we go. So I'm going to show you the difference between keeping the formatting and not keeping the formatting, and how to do a special copy and paste. So you can always right-click to copy. Most programs have a copy button as well. You can also use Control-C to copy if you want to make that a little quicker for yourself. So I just use Control-C after highlighting something. I'm going to select the cells that I want to place it in. And if I just click Control-V to paste, you see that that styling goes away. We don't want that to happen. So use that Control-Z I showed you to undo. And this time, I want you to right-click and do Paste Special. And here it's going to give you several choices. What we want to choose is text. If you're using a Mac, it may say unformatted or match formatting. These are just different ways that it might say. So text, unformatted, or match formatting will keep the formatting of your document. So we're going to choose OK, and now we can see that it kept our formatting. We want to do that for the rest of this. So I'm going to go back again to my sample information. I've got a list of hours. You can Control-C. We're going to Control-V, and we see that didn't work. Again, just to practice, go to Paste Special and choose Text. And there it's going to keep the formatting. Let's go back to our information, and we're going to choose. Now here, I'm going to select 2 columns. And this is just as easy to do as 1 column. You're going to highlight it. You're going to copy it. Oh, almost done. And you're going to paste. Oops. And again, we're going to do Paste Special. So I'm running out of time. So really quickly, I want to show you how to do this Days 360. So we're going to select the column. Duration, this is cell F7. And we're going to choose the function. And let's pretend we don't know what we're doing. We're going to choose days 360. We know that it has something to do with days, and it's going to show up for us. We'll click OK. So our start date, we want that to be cell C7. And our end date, we want to be cell D7. For method, we're going to choose false. Again, it's giving you a note about why, and this has to do with the type of time you're using. So if you're using US time versus European time, for US, we're going to use false.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Click OK, and it's going to give you the total. Again, this is an easy formula to figure out how to use, and you can see how it works up here. And since I'm kind of rushing through this, I want to remind you that most of the stuff that I covered is on the Excel tips to remember on your handout so that you can accomplish this later. And I did not have time to get to my timeline. Is there another class coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll remove it from the audit.
So thanks for coming. We have an assessment that if you choose to come to all of our sessions, you can complete. If you're still curious about the timeline, which we didn't have time to cover, we'll take that off of our assessment since we didn't have time to cover it. But you are welcome to use the handout to follow along with what I had. It's the simplest of the exercises that we had, and it really just focuses on some more complicated formatting that you could do to make something like this for trial or for your own personal reference. So I encourage you to check that out and have fun, as much fun as you can with Excel. And on the handout, if you do choose to take our assessment, there are links to it and instructions. Thanks for coming.